We're live on YouTube now, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, everybody. Good evening to everybody who's watching. Can I welcome you all to the January Shadow Executive Meeting? Rufio wants in. We have 65 days to go until vesting day. So not a lot of time and a lot to get done. So apologies for non-attendance, Paul.
Apologies, none from councillors, Chair. I do have apologies from Audra Statham.
Okay. Any requests to address the meeting? I think I saw two earlier.
Haven't had requests to address the meeting per se, but have got some councillors who've joined the meeting.
Fine. Any declarations of interest from members?
No.
None. So the minutes of the previous meeting were held on pages, or are on pages 3 to 10. So is there anything of factual accuracy on page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10? So if there are no issues of accuracy, are you content that we approve these as a true record of that meeting? Agreed? I think that's agreed, Paul. Thank you. I have no announcements to make at this stage. So item 6, Director of Transformations Programme update. Jane.
Okay, thank you. So just to obviously confirm that we're bringing you the dashboard again this month and that we are reporting by exception. You will notice a common theme with some of the risks that are occurring on some of these, and probably as we go towards vesting day, it's going to be the key areas within each programme that are an issue, basically. So just working through adult social care, again, some risks are materialised around the systems. The ICT was always going to be the pressure going towards vesting day, but with Eclipse and Signum, there's particular issues. We are working through mitigating those risks, and some of those will need to be some level of workaround, but that is in hand within the adults programme. So just to assure you of that, but ICT will become an ongoing problem as we get closer and system issues occur as you try to actually implement the split in various places. Within children's services, so education, this, as you know, this information is behind the current picture. So education recruiting specialist post for new functions, as it was an issue, although we have agreed the structure now, so that should become a lot easier in the current form. And key decisions in relation to support services that will impact the trust is in hand at the moment. Sorry. So with corporate, the biggest risks are in corporate, and that's not surprising because it's the widest programme, and obviously there is more that can be at risk within those. Some of them you've seen before, such as in the terms and conditions with the trade unions, so I won't take you through that again. Two big ones in here is the inter-authority contracts not being in place for vesting day. The monitoring officers are working on that at the moment, and in the critical products list you'll also see that there's an increased watch on this from the programme. It is unlikely that we will get every contract in place by day one, but what we are doing is prioritising the main contracts to make sure the ones that could be the highest risk will be in place. And we're working through that at the moment. You know, what order should that be in? There is also a risk around the GDPR compliance on day one regarding the split of NCC data. This is back to the system issue where managing to split the amount of systems we have in place has proven to be quite difficult. So we are talking to the ICO on an ongoing basis. Both the monitoring officers for North and West are involved in that conversation, and a paper will be coming through next month for you to see on that. And then with the finance and ERP system, whilst there is a risk mentioned, I think we're actually really on top of the ERP system being live and having everything that we need in place, so that's important. And we also took on board, Chair, the comments that you made last time about joining up people and are recruiting some change champions to be ERP specialists and basically to help those other people who are using it for the first time through that. Customer contact and digital is all in a good place, and ICT is the other one with a number of risks occurring. So again, it's back to systems become complicated to do. Some of the risks around MS365 has increased with NCC not being on schedule. However, we do have an alternative plan for that, which will be implemented shortly. So before vesting day, that should be in the right place. And specialist skills and experience, we're having to go out to the market to get some of those, because whilst we have a number of IT people available, the skills are not necessarily there, and we need some upskilling to happen that can't be done in the short space of time that we have. And then just moving down to finance. You've seen a couple of these before, but with the statutory accounts of sovereign authorities, it extends beyond vesting day, and it's the again the capacity that is needed within finance to get that work done. We have got mitigations and plans in place, but we will need specialists, and we do need to make sure that we maintain and retain as many of our finance people as possible during this period of uncertainty. So that's really important. The other one that's on there, just to draw your attention to, is the further work that needs to be done on how loans and investments will be disaggregated. Martin, as the Section 151 officer, has a view of that and is taking the work forward, but it's just to make you aware that that is there as well. And with place, basically a lot of the services are now in the right place. We've had really good engagement from SMEs. So there's only one on there, which is around capacity in the IT programme. So it all leads back to the ICT again. So I'm just going to hand over quickly to Martin to run the figures with you, and then I'll take you through the rest of the report, if that's okay.
Thank you, Jane. Through you, Chair. The figures are fairly straightforward because they've not changed since last month. On the expenditure side of things, we've got an underspend of about 190,000 for this year, and that's based on when the statutory appointments were made. They weren't made as quickly as we thought they might be made, so there's a slight underspend as a result of that. And then on the delivery of benefits or the efficiency savings in this current financial year, it looks like they're down by just over £1 million, 1009. But in actual fact, that's just a profiling issue. So these savings have been delayed and will be delivered, but will be delivered in 21-22 and future financial years rather than the current financial year. So the net impact of those two areas, efficiency savings not being delivered, but the underspend on the expenditure, is in this current financial year, it's shown an 819,000 unfavourable variance, and that's no change from the previous month.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Chair, I'm not sure whether you wanted to go to questions now on those bits before I went to the next bit, or are you happy for me to continue?
Yeah, let's just get any questions in before people forget what it was they were going to ask. Lizzie's got her hand up, so Lizzie.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Just a quick update on the MS365 NCC rollout. When do you foresee that taking place at NCC? And then I have a second question after that.
Unfortunately, I'd have to go away and check that, Lizzie, because they were working on a Plan C currently. So if you don't mind, I'll come back to that information. Okay.
And question
can Richard Ellis answer
Richard
that
might
one?
be able to answer that. I didn't realise he was on the call.
Oh yeah, yeah. I should be able to give a bit of an update on that. We're looking at two alternative plans. One was to push it back by 1 weekend to the 29th. We've actually now agreed that we'll approach it slightly differently. Our Plan C, which pushes it back slightly further, but also does the migration in a slightly different way. It does mitigate a lot of the risk. It allows us to work much more closely with staff and members of NCC to ensure that we get a much more smooth migration across the line. So it's being done slightly differently to the other migrations, but I'm pretty confident that as a result of us sort of splitting it in different ways, it does allow much greater engagement with staff and members to ensure that we get that smooth transition.
Was that sort of early mid-February then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's fair enough, isn't it? And much rather you do it when you're absolutely ready than before that. So there's a question for Martin Henry in terms of disaggregation update. I think the last time we met as a disaggregation team was, I think, first week of August. I'm wondering, Martin, whether we should be having an update as a disaggregation group on the progress made in that area, both for the disaggregation of the county budget and also the aggregation of the borough and district. And one area particular of interest would be the pensions, which was always going to be the hardest bit with the actuarial information.
Yeah, through you, Chair. This is a live topic, so we're still working hard on the few outstanding dissatisfactions that haven't been resolved. The last time we went into the task and finish group, we had another meeting just today, actually, in terms of looking forward, and we're hoping and expecting to have that finalised in the next week or so to be able to feed into the final budget report, which we're in the process of beginning to pull together. So certainly we can provide an update to you and bring you up to speed in terms of where we are in relation to that.
Great, thanks.
You done, Lizzie?
Yes, thank you, Ian.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thank you, Jane, for the report. Lots of the issues you raised are linked to sort of ICT. You did mention that you're trying to get some more expertise in. Do you think that will be done in time? And is there enough out there to actually bring in that's available to us? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. So we absolutely believe that there is. We're going out on a framework agreement to bring in the skills from the market, which means that we'll work with various providers in the market to get the skills we need. I mean, ultimately, we want to get to the point where in West Northamptonshire we have the skills ourselves, and we'll be looking for them as part of that agreement to upskill the people that we have available to us and the people that are already working in ICT. But we're pretty confident the skills are out there in the market through that framework agreement.
Happy, Matt? Danielle?
Thank you, Chair. That's interesting. I was going to ask that very question about upskilling the workforce, because obviously it's going to be a continuing need, isn't it? Not just a one-off. Somebody mentioned appointments, so forgive me if I'm asking the wrong question at the wrong time, but I am really interested in capacity issues, and it is a theme, you know, that I talk to all the time, and I am worried about the pressure on staff and our capacity issues. So if you could make some comment on that. And I wondered if during the course of the meeting or at the full council meeting we could have some indication of what's happening with the staff in terms of vacancy rates, illness rates, and all of that kind of thing, because clearly staff morale and staff stress, and I'm thinking about COVID and all of that, either helps or hinders our ability to deliver on target all the time. So I think it would be good if councillors had an overview of what was going on with staff.
Anna?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yeah, so just sorry, first of all, picking up that one, Danielle, all the councils and certainly the County Council are recording monthly at the moment levels of staffing and capacity. I'm certainly pleased to say in the County Council there's only about 40 people who aren't able to work from home, but we're tracking people who are off ill for COVID, for isolation and other things. And we're not in a bad place. We've obviously got a lot more sickness than we've had in the previous round of COVID, but actually still doing quite well. I'm not quite so sure whether all the district boroughs have that information. They may well do, but we can provide it. We certainly are reporting on it and tracking it regularly. Just picking up the specialist skills thing, it's just worth commenting that what Jane means in terms of the specialist skills, these aren't day-to-day sort of things. These are very specialist skills. So, for example, you know, things like cybersecurity type things and information security. So there's a set of skills where we need particular people to do a particular task. So we already do have a lot of skills in the service and we're using those, but there are some finite activities where it makes sense to get an expert in to make sure we've got correct policies and things. So I don't want members to be alarmed that it sounds as if we don't have the in-house skill, because I know that Richard will say the same, the team do. I think the other thing to say about the systems and some of the challenges we've got in terms of them being ready is in all these cases, there are workarounds. It's just a balance between, you know, whether we work around things and we might have to do something manually, we might have to do something with data protection agreements or things like that. It's not a we won't do them. We just won't do them if they're not safe and they're not going to protect the services. And that's just all about making timely, sensible decisions, I think, which is what Jane's describing. So again, you know, we're looking at the risks. It's not a question in terms of rushing towards the finish line to make sure everything's done before the 1st of April. We will make sure it's safe. Thank you, Chair.
Does George or Richard or Ian since Anna threw out the challenge there on sickness levels in the districts and boroughs. So George, see Ian's got his hand up. Yeah, I'm sure Richard has the numbers raised in. So George.
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. So I think it's fair to say that Northamptonshire Borough Council and its sickness levels have actually seen a drop in the last 12 months, which there's various probably theories and reasons behind that, but the statistics show that we have seen a drop. Although that said, we have started to see a slight increase in the last 2 months. A combination of reflecting A, the winter months, and B, some people have had to self-isolate within the borough. I'm pleased to say not that many, and it hasn't unduly affected any of our frontline service delivery. But on the whole, our sickness levels are down compared to where they were 12 months ago. Thank you, Chair.
Ian Vincent.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, similar picture at Daventry. I think the point I'd like to make is that we have obviously got quite a small cohort of staff in any event, and so it for me it's not about the percentage or the number of people off sick. It's where those individuals sit in the organisation. And I've got people off at the moment with COVID or self-isolating at a very senior level. And that does have an impact all the way through the organisation, because small organisations need this central leadership team to be on top of their game. I think what I'm noticing more than anything is that there are probably 3 areas that are under significant pressure. IT being one of them, and we've got quite a cohort that's committed to the LGR programme almost exclusively now. Environmental health, which is clearly another one of those areas that we all know that the input they're giving to the COVID programme, but probably the biggest area that I've got most concern over, and probably are the most pressured staff at the moment in terms of prolonged pressure, is Revs and Bens, and they are having to effectively ration their time. So I've got some pretty tired staff, pretty much at the end of their tether in terms of particularly on the grant schemes, and that's something that I'm fully aware of, and in fact met with the Revs and Bens lead this afternoon to try and see us through across the finishing line. So it's a pressure on small numbers, so I don't think our sickness rate is particularly high, but those people that are off are having quite an impact.
Okay, I'll take Richard and then Ruffy. I see you got your hand up. I've plucked that. It's just Richard as the last chief.
Yeah, I'd echo what George and Ian have said. Quite honestly, we have seen a drop off in overall sickness rate, and like Anna said, we're actually monitoring those people who are self-isolating but still able to work, or those people that have actually become quite sick and therefore can't work. So we're monitoring that very, very closely. Much as Ian has said, this does fall very much on a few key teams, and we're watching that very, very carefully and sort of shuffling our resources around as appropriate. And I think we're gonna see some issues as well as the third tier goes through that recruitment process, and some of those individuals, when they're successful, they'll start to focus more on West Northants, quite rightly. So we then have to think about how we manage that resource back at the Sovereign Council. So it's a fluid situation, and we're managing that resource as necessary.
Thanks, Ruffy. You've been rather patient there.
Thank you. If we are upskilling staff, would there be opportunities for apprenticeships?
Anna, is that for now, or is that sort of?
It's for Jane.
Oh, sorry, for Jane. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
I really got the feeling what we needed at the moment were a skill set, not people to train in. But Jane.
Right, okay.
Yeah, sorry. So just to answer that, so as Anna said, that some of the skills really that we're looking for are very, very specialist at the moment. So they're things like cybersecurity, but absolutely the council has a responsibility around apprenticeships, and going forward into West Northampton, we'll be looking at how we drive that programme forward in apprenticeships. But for these particular roles, they are specialist roles that need specialist skills.
Okay, thank you. So we just now seem to have taken a left at the lights there. We need to get back to the main report.
Yeah.
Jane.
You're happy for me to continue, Chair? Thank you.
I don't think there's any other questions, so pick up where we left off.
That's fine. So just to take you through the rest of the report, there's the critical products part there, but we've already talked through the main elements of that, of the ones that we've got on watch, but just to show you how we're managing it in terms of keeping an eye on those things that are concerns for us. And then below you'll see the normal analysis of achievements, opportunities, risks and issues. Underneath that are just the change management information. So we're keeping it on the you said we did part. So I'll assume that you've all read this report and are able to see that for yourselves. But just to show, we're trying to show absolutely where we've had a request from staff, or we've had a challenge from staff, or there's something that they need, and then how we're responding to it. So you can see clearly the work and the impact that it has on staff. Just to add to the question that Councillor Stone raised around staff morale. Within the programme team, there is a lot of pressure, and we are also asking a lot of those staff in terms of SMEs alongside business as usual. There is no doubt with COVID pressure that the LGR and the Future Northants programme would be a lot easier without COVID, and would have more people available without COVID. But we are in this position, and we are trying to get as many things to the line as it absolutely need for day one, but not over pressurize people where we can. I think the other thing to say is that we've also approached staff mental health by NCC have some really good, well-trained mental health first aiders, and it's been agreed that those can also be deployed into districts and boroughs. So as well as the normal staff support that we have through the helplines, employee assist, Validium in various places that would normally be there, you've also got people on hand as mental health first aiders who can talk and guide people through, and also support the change champions in their work. Okay, so happy to take any questions, Chair.
And is Validium a West-wide resource?
No, I think it's just in SNC, but obviously you've got employee assist in NCC, but it's just one of the ones that are available.
But we've got
we've got alternatives in others.
Everybody's got the same thing, just by a different name.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see any hands indicating. No. Fine. So thank you for that, Jane. There's no further questions on that. So programme change requests. Are these yours, Jane, or are these Anna's?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair. So can we just ask?
Apologies. Oh yeah, you better adopt the sorry. Let's just go back to item 6. Can I propose then that we note the high-level delivery status, note the update on the change readiness, and notes the communication engagements update, and notes and approves the finance monitoring report. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Any against? That is carried, Paul. Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you, Chair.
So I'll move on now to item 7, programme change requests. Anna,
So,
Jane, are you doing
it's me, sorry.
All right, crack on.
So I'm bringing them as a Director of Transformation. The two people that are responsible for these areas, Martin and Kathy, are both here. They can give a quick explanation of each one if that's okay. And then if there's any questions, you can ask them from there. So Kathy would be the first one.
I like the way you've done this. I'm doing it, but actually it's Kathy. Kathy?
Thank you, Chair.
She owes you another coffee.
Thank you, Chair. The first request is to make an addition to the original blueprint for the education services, and that's to add a education commissioning and sufficiency department, because when we had the formation of the Children's Trust, the education service had been left without any commission and sufficiency because they used to share it with the children's service. The initial blueprints didn't actually show this requirement. The department, the commissioning and sufficiency resource is required to support and manage the contracts that we have in the learning skills and education department and to ensure the correct placements of young people, and also the management and the appropriate management of this designated schools grant. And that's the main source of income for the school's budget. They also look at, as I said, the educational packages and placements for children with education, health and care plans and specialist needs, and they are children who have quite high placement packages. So this report seeks to formally approve these services, this new department in the education service. The cost is 274k. But this has already been agreed within a 500k confirmed budget for structural changes. The positive impact of this will be able to will increase actually the management and control over some of the budgets and the contracts that we have, and it will also enable us to actually develop the market, and so that we can actually get better value for money, and we will also meet the needs of our children a lot better. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. Oh, Lizzie?
Just what I was going to say is I didn't hear a word, but we had this problem early this afternoon, and I think Kathy's system hasn't been upgraded.
Yeah, same here, Lizzie.
Yeah, so
I
it is
heard
her
every
system.
word.
I know, but we've had this problem this afternoon.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not on the right version, so I
We had
didn't
it
hear a
last
word.
week as well.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. She just needs to upgrade her version of the Zoom details on her system, I believe. But I mean,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, Ian.
No, because
Well,
well,
on the call is two on the call, not upgraded.
Yeah.
oh.
So I don't know what she said, but I mean, obviously
She said it was a thoroughly good idea and we should approve it. In summary.
I probably
Is
already
that a
heard
fair
it.
summary? Is that a fair summary, Kathy?
Definitely, Chair. Thank you.
Now, what she said, Lizzie, just that there was a £275,000 cost to this, but it was covered within a budget that we'd had allowed. We were going to develop and increase the capacity in this area, and that in itself would probably then allow us to develop the wider marketplace. She didn't say, but I presume the brackets there are, and hopefully then get cost savings back in any event. So, these were the reasons to change that, to bring in these additional posts and additional capacity. Is that a fair summing up, Kathy?
Thank you very much, Chair. It is.
All right. And the other one from Martin. Martin, if you just introduce yourself. Oh, sorry, that Martin. Sorry, I was looking at Martin Henry. Apologies. Did everybody hear evening chair from Martin Cox? Well, it's just people can't hear. We just need to know what we're doing. Yeah, Lizzie, you okay with Martin? All right. Okay, sorry, Martin.
Hey everyone, and then for those of you who can't hear me, I'm proposing a thoroughly good idea as well. This is an addition to our blueprint that is really important for our future new council. It's how currently the county manages its spend on agency, recruitment of agency and temporary resource, which any big modern employer needs to ensure it gets value for money. It's a successful enterprise. It's been developed with partners. It delivers us value because they either deliver our agency staff direct or they source it from the market at an appropriate and competitive rate, which would be better than you got if you went effectively off the street. So this is just introducing it to our blueprint. There'll be decisions for the West to make in future in terms of who joins the board, because it is an ongoing asset, if you like. It makes a profit as well in terms of a company, and all of our councils, including the district and boroughs, are being transitioned to take benefit of that and for that to be in place for the 1st of April this year. So it's in addition to the blueprint, it's a significant one because all our councils spend over £10 million a year in this market. All of them naturally try and reduce. It's just a reality of the modern that we need to increase peak times with additional staff. Our colleagues in the children's also use Opus and continue to use Opus. And obviously what I'm presenting today is a suggestion to join the blueprint and for us to realise and take forward the benefit into the new council. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any questions? Everybody happy with that explanation? Don't see any questions or anybody indicating to speak. So I will move that we recommend to approve the changes requested to the blueprint as outlined in Appendix A to the corporate Opus and to children's commissioning and sufficiency. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Anyone against? That is carried. Thank you. So on to item 8, local council tax reduction scheme. And before we start this item, can I just thank Jane Birch as the chair of the scrutiny committee, who has waived call-in. So after this meeting concludes, the decision will stand. And there was a technical reason that Martin told me about it. We have to do this as a legal requirement by the 31st of January. The scheme has to be in place. And I'm very grateful to Jane for recognising that. But because it has been to scrutiny at least once, if not necessarily twice, she was happy to do that. But I think it's useful that we record our thanks to her as the chair of scrutiny for allowing that to go through in the interest of efficiency of everyone. So, Rebecca.
Thank you, Chair. We're all now familiar with the work that the Task and Finish Group, and in fact, as we've just heard, the Scrutiny Committee have done on the local council tax reduction scheme. So I don't intend to go into detail on it again, except to say that each of the 3 sovereign authorities operated their own schemes, and these do have to be harmonised by vesting day this year. So the Task and Finish Group, having looked at all the data and information, recommended a 26.5% scheme, a proposal which would have been cost neutral to the council, and that went out to consultation in November until early December. The results of the consultation can be seen in a report which is appended next on the agenda. Sorry, next to this paper on the agenda. The consultation responses were remarkably equally split, with 43.28% of respondents strongly agreeing with the proposal and 43.27% strongly disagreeing, the remaining 13.45% being largely neutral. So having looked at the consultation responses, considered this at the scrutiny, the executive have looked at it as well. And with the ongoing impact of the pandemic and the economic fallout of that, which of course is largely unknown, but also having since being out to consultation, being able to produce a balanced budget, I would like to propose that the executive recommend a 20% council tax reduction scheme as our proposal going forward. At 3.22 of your report, and I'm sorry, my report doesn't have page numbers, so it is 3.22. You can see the cost of this proposal, which will be circa £780,000, in excess of the cost neutral scheme, which we looked at originally. So that's my first proposal. The report goes on to make a further 5 proposals, which also went out to consultation and were broadly supported in the responses. And these are listed further on under 3.22% as well. So, Chair, to sum up, I'm proposing that members approve a local council tax reduction scheme for West Northamptonshire for the year 21-22 based on 20%, which means that our most vulnerable working age residents will have support on up to 80% of their bills next year. I'm also proposing that we accept the remaining proposals 2 to 6 as recommended in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? I think that's a very excellent proposition, Rebecca, and it's also very good to know now that by doing that, probably 80% of the people that are currently in receipt of council tax reduction scheme will be no worse off or probably better off as a result of that. Certainly the bulk of the cases are in the Northampton Borough area. Daventry already have a 20% scheme. So I think that's a really excellent outcome that we've managed to do. So thank you to you and the Task and Finish group and everyone who's and thank you to everyone who's taken part in the consultation, and particularly saying, you know, you said, we listened, we've changed our recommendations as a direct result of what's come in. So for those that say same old, I think we can only demonstrate how we intend for West Northants to be slightly different by actions. And at the first opportunity, we're taking actions to ease the burden on those on the lowest incomes right across what will be our new district. And I think that's something of which we, as a shadow executive and as a shadow authority, should be rightly proud. So Rebecca has moved the recommendation that we note the contents of the report, the previous report by the shadow executive on the 5th, agree the proposed local council tax reduction scheme for West Northamptonshire for the financial year 21-22 to be 20%, and grant delegated authority to section 151 to make amendments as required to the local council tax reduction scheme up to the 31st of January as required. Are we all agreed? Any against? Thank you, that is carried. So item 9, returning officer fees. Is Anna with us on this one?
It's me, Chair.
Yeah, I just wondered, does Anna have an interest on this, or is that covered?
Sorry, yes, I do. There's a conflict of interest for there. So yeah, declare that up front. Sorry, I should have done that first. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be aware that the election will take place in May, and that in order to prepare for that, we need to set the fees for the staff so that we can begin to employ them. This is one of those rare functions for the Shadow Authority that actually begins now, because, as you said, Anna has been appointed as the returning officer and is carrying out that function as we at the moment as we move forward. So what we have set out is a schedule of fees across the whole of the Northamptonshire area to ensure that we are able to recruit staff. The report recommends the appointment, the fees for the returning officer. The returning officer is responsible for setting the fees for all the other staff, but we have nevertheless set out the full set of fees in the attached appendix. Just to say that the end of the report, it points out that the fee would be less than the fee that would be payable in Kettering and East Northants. I should also say that it's less than the fee that would be payable in Daventry as well, when they last held a 3-member ward election, an all-out election in 2012. Thank you, Chair.
Any comments on this one? No, no one wishes to speak on it. I think the schedule is what the schedule is. So are we happy? So let me just formally move the recommendation. So I recommend the Shadow Executive that we approve the returning officer fees contained in the appendix and note the other fees and charges within the scale of fees. I propose that are we all in favour? Anyone against? Okay, that is carried, thank you. We can readmit Anna Earnshaw. That was sorted, Anna, we just cut it by 50%. So moving on to highly complex autism tender. Katie's not with us, but Anna's going to do it. She told me earlier. So Anna.
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. Tonight we're presenting an autism paper, and we're seeking members' agreement to delegate to the acting DAS, which is Katie Brown, the authority to commence procurement for complex autism services for people over the age of 18. Autism and those people and young people with complex conditions often have very, very challenging needs. And they haven't been well met by us over the years because the services that we provided have generally been under the banner of learning disabled services and support services, and they don't recognise the often sort of complex situations that they're in and their families are in. And parent groups have often fed back to us that it's really, really difficult to get the actual and bespoke sort of care that their children need. And we've recognised this over a long time. So since 2018, actually, we've been working with health, with partners, with autism experts, and with children's groups and parents groups to look at what kind of services would best support them to meet their outcomes and make sure that they could sort of live the lives that they wanted to. And we developed, in conjunction with all of them, an outcome framework about how we might do that and how we might create a bright future with sort of more bespoke services that then could be called down on. So all partners agreed that that was a better way of doing this, and all partners agreed that we should do it together and create a single framework from which health and children's services and adult services could then draw down services from providers to meet the needs of those young people. So we have actually brought this together under a single framework. We've been through the process. We've got agreement from all the stakeholder groups. Unfortunately, obviously, like many things, COVID has delayed our process, but we now want to go to the market, and it's important that we get this in place. So it's a proposal for a 4-year framework from which all partners would pay for their own services that they bought and commissioned, but actually then would be able to call off as I said, from a single place with specialist providers. So I hope that members will support us to do this and that we can proceed with the procurement with a view that we would hopefully let a contract in the summer that all partners could now commence using to support this key group. I'm happy to take any questions, but hopefully fairly self-explanatory in terms of what we're trying to achieve. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Matt, and then Fiona.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to totally support Anna in everything she said there. NCC Cabinet colleagues, there's Malcolm, Lizzie and Fiona that are on the call. We did have a session with Katie this afternoon, and we talked about this because it does come to NCC Cabinet on the 9th. But it just to say it makes complete sense to have that joined up approach, and hopefully that sort of paves the way for a lot of the work that we are looking to do in the future in a much more joined up and integrated way, which will give obviously better outcomes for all the users of the service and of course be more efficient and streamlined. So really pleased to support the paper. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I suppose a number of you may have watched that documentary last night on Jordan, I suppose is her son. That was and it was really moving. I am actually a carer for an autistic child. He's now 24 and enjoy my time with him immensely. Obviously during COVID that hasn't been possible. I've been with him since I was 12, so I would support anything that supports and helps in this field, especially for the families. I remember the family of the child I look after really fighting to try and get the right sort of support for Harry, and whatever we can do to improve this area, we must do. This is really critical and it's a real need, and yeah, I fully support it. Hopefully my colleagues will do that.
Thank you, Richard. It's always good to get real practical experience, and I see Fiona waving her hand is also very experienced in this area too. Fiona?
Yes. It's a fantastic opportunity for us to join up our services from children to adults. It's been an area that's been a gap in the past where they come to the end of children's and then there seems to be a sort of cliff they fall off before going into adults. So this joined up experience will be really good. I'm being a bit nitpicky, but I just wanted to check with Anna, because when we had our meeting with Katie this afternoon, she did say that this was from 14, and I think in your presentation you said 18. That may have been a slip.
No, sorry. I can confirm it's from the age of 14. Sorry, adults tend to provide care, don't they, from 18 onwards?
Yeah. So I just wanted to reassure everybody that it actually does include the sort of more teenage children as well, where the big issues start coming into play. Thank you.
And you'd mentioned before about transition from particularly those in care at that point to those, you know, where we have mentioned in the past about trying to get better and smarter is to start earlier and smooth that path. So,
and I know Anna is working
strategy.
Anna knows about that too. We've had discussions in the past about that transition through from one to the other to make it more seamless.
Okay, Lizzie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what Richard mentioned about the documentary last night with Katie Price, I would really urge all those councillors, if they haven't seen it already, to actually watch it, particularly those that are not in a county council environment at the moment. This whole issue of transitioning is a challenging one, very difficult to tackle. And I'm sure Richard and Fiona would agree with me on that one. And I think this documentary, you know, for all her faults, this was an amazing accolade to her and what she was doing. So I really would urge you all to watch it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else got anything to say on this one? No? Okay, so I will recommend that the Shadow Executive approves delegated authority to Katie Brown, who's the Interim Director of Adult Social Services, to give permission to proceed with the tender for complex autism services for autistic people over the age of 14. Are we all agreed? Any against? That is carried, thank you. So we now move on to the task and finish group reports. Jane.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Golby might want to do an introduction before I start on my bit, if that's possible.
Yeah, if that's okay. Well, I just wanted to bring something to the executive because obviously I've been chairing the task and finish group, and we've had virtually all of the others report back at different times. And you know, the transformation is something that's going to go on way beyond vesting day, and I was just keen to just give a bit of a mention to some of the thoughts and things that we've come up with. We've had a number of meetings going back, as the paper says, way back it seems now to June 2020 with Paul Helsby, and you know, we all know Paul's moved on, and Jane came in later at the beginning of this year, or was it November time, wasn't it, Jane? Sorry. And you know, the world's moved on again, and as the report recognises, a lot of the people that would be working on transformation have been reassigned onto different areas to work on COVID, and so we've got a lot of the transformation that we wanted to get done. Unfortunately, we're not going to get done before vesting day. But one thing the group has talked about is a lot of the principles that we'd like to put in place. We've had some really good debates and conversations about things that we should have there, and they're listed on the report there. Like I say, we've had some really good conversations and debates that have been really interesting, and we hope that can give a good steer to Jane and colleagues as we move forward. But the main point is I wanted to make sure that we mention this to the executive. It's a really important area, but the fact is, due to COVID and all the other pressures, it's not going to happen before vesting day in a lot of the areas that we'd have hoped. But hopefully we've laid some principles down now that can really kick on and help officers move transformation forward way into and beyond vesting day, so that all the disaggregation and aggregation work that we've talked about, that has been set in train, will happen, hopefully aligned to a lot of the principles we've put down. So that's just my comments, Chair, and I'm sure Jane will perhaps add to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Sorry. Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yeah, so just to add to that, Councillor Golby has covered really well a lot of the stuff that we've done. One of the things that is clear, and we've laid it out in the report, is whilst there are long-term ambitions for the council that we really want to look at, we needed to get close to the detail of what we were going to do in the first 2 to 3 years, given the pressures that we've got around the number of services that are still remaining hosted and need to be disaggregated, along with the clear pressure to aggregate some of the district and borough services and also those corporate services across the piece. Just to say, members' input was absolutely invaluable in working some of that through. And I think the principles that we've arrived at will help us to assess whether transformation projects going forward. So as alongside a business case, it really gives us that centered approach to what are the reasons we're doing this? Does it fit with the key principles that we want to do? Alongside, you know, all of the other things that we need to consider in terms of, you know, the savings and making sure that we've got the right budget in place. And just to add to that, the assessment that's been done, we will have a timeline and a roadmap that's coming through for you. We've got a few more meetings that we need to go through where we just finalise that timeline and roadmap. And we also then need to negotiate with the North, because with things like the hosted services, absolutely, we can't do that on our own, because some of it, they need to be able to receive the service and be ready to do that work. And we need to be able to receive services that they're hosting and make sure we're ready to do that work. So it's all hand in hand. So happy to answer any questions on any of the transformation work.
Any questions? Can I just also add my thanks to Matt and the Task and Finish group and yourself, Jane, because the transformation is the key to this. You know, the success or otherwise of both councils will be in how much we can wring out of the transformation and drive the efficiencies and you know, and get lean and keen. So I'm particularly grateful to you all for that. Matt.
All it was, just for Richard August's sake, we got Colin on board in the end, Richard, and he's been brilliant. I just want to add that.
Yeah. Where am I? Yeah, Task and Finish group. So I don't see any other hands up other than Matt's, which I'm going to put down unless he wants to put it back up again. So I shall move to recommend that the Shadow Executive note the content of the report and support the continuation of the work of the group to finalise the transformation priorities and to agree joint priorities with Northamptonshire Transformation Task and Finish group. Are we agreed? Any against? That is carried. Thank you. So we shall now move on to item. Is there an item 12? My paper's got it crossed out.
No, Chair. Items 12 and 13 have been withdrawn.
Have been withdrawn. Item 14, there's no matters referred. There are no exempt items. There are no urgent items. Just one thing that I probably should have said at the beginning was yesterday we got notification from MHCLG that the consequential order had been laid in Parliament. Although when I went searching for it on the legislation website this morning, I couldn't find it, but maybe it'll take a while to update. So another part of the tidying up and the bringing together, and there were some important points in the letter that we got from the junior minister in the MHCLG around keeping the pension funds together, that West will have responsibility for the pensions to be administered on behalf of West. Well, basically the county and the existing councils as well, and I think even the predecessor ones to the existing councils that are dating back pre-74. So it is quite important that has gone through, and I think there's also bits and pieces around making sure certain civic rights maybe more pertinent to the borough carry through. So there's a few points of detail in there. They're all minor points of detail, but still important points of detail that bring us on our way. Is there anything else to be said on that one, Catherine, before we close the meeting? It doesn't look like it. No? Okay, so I will close the meeting at 18:55. Thank you all for your time.